Welcome back, and thank you for caring about your world. We're going to be talking to Bob Chapman, who cares about your financial world and cares about your financial physical shape, mental shape also, because he is going to help us understand what it is that's going on in this crazy world right now and sift through all of this fraud that is on television. Bob Chapman is the editor of the financial newsletter theinternationalforecaster.com, theinternationalforecaster.com. And as always, they offer a free complimentary first copy of the newsletter. Decide if you want to get it, but be ready to read because you're going to get lots of information there. And I thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Bob Chapman, for joining us on the Power Hour today again.
And I thank you because I love your program.
Well, thank you, and we love you too, and we're just full of love here at the Power Hour, I'll tell you, even though it seems like the world is falling apart down in Haiti. I mean, Bob, do you find that they're wanting to make us feel guilty if we don't watch this all the time and endure their suffering and send all the money that we have to them?
Yes, and as well, to get us off in a different direction other than the hearings that are going on involving the criminals on Wall Street, and other domestic problems such as trying to pass a medical reform bill in cap and trade and so on. And, of course, to also put into effect something positive for the president because he and Congress, their ratings are deplorable. And so that's why it's played up the way it is. But I found very disconcerting, and Americans and others have sent millions and millions of dollars already in this cruise there and so on and so forth. But these people are killing each other. The violence is so bad in the capital that anyone can get out of town, they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I read one communique this morning that said that they were clinging to the tops of buses and trucks, anything that would move to get them into the countryside. That's horrible.
It is. And you watch all these screaming children under rocks, under concrete. I mean, if you have a soul, you can only watch this so long, and then you just want to go bang your head against a wall because you are in so much pain for what they are experiencing. There's something to this psychological ploy which really bothers me, and I think part of it is what you just said. They're trying to get us away from reality of what's happening in this country today. Let's mention some of those things that perhaps they would like to divert us from. You know, the alleged health care bill, which is nothing more than a prescription bill, a prescription bill to give more people more prescriptions. But what else is it? What's happening in the financial sector? These 3 banks that just failed this past weekend, does that have anything to do with it?
Of course, they don't want them to see them. That's why they announced them on Friday night. And needless to say, I know you found that out, but I would say 99.999% of the public don't know that 3 banks failed this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of the propaganda subterfuge, or the non-information, if you may. Oh, yes, we announced it, but you didn't see it? Oh, yes, yes. You know, it's same old, same old.
Uh-huh.
And they're always doing such things. But what's going on in Wall Street, I don't think anything's going to come of it because Wall Street runs Washington. It has for a long, long time. And anybody who's been a player like I was is very, very aware of the control that the major firms have on Wall Street. In fact, when I was in the brokerage business, they tolerated me, believe me. Had there been any more like me, they would have done something about it because I always said things that were in direct opposition to what they were saying. And I was always saying, well, we shouldn't do that because that's not right. But they do it anyway.
What a concept. We shouldn't do it because it's not right. I mean, what a concept. I mean, that you must have been a target for saying something like that.
Well, in 1967, which is only 7 years after I started in the brokerage business, in that time I did not own my own firm. And I didn't own my own firm until the 1970s. And the SEC, the NESD, the state bodies that guided investment for people within the state, they were in my office perpetually. I mean, they tried to do everything they could to put me out of business. In fact, I had an incident that happened in 1967 that I didn't even know about until much later. I can't remember the year. But as an extension of what they were doing in the brokerage business, they actually went to people who I knew, the government, the FBI and BATF and people like this. They actually went to people who were friends of mine and tried to force them to set me up so they could send me away.
Wow. Now, wait a minute. With all the regulatory...
I didn't find that out until a couple of these people were dying. Because they were so afraid to tell me because the government told them, if you say anything to him, we'll put you away.
Well, it seems like if we have all these wonderful regulatory agencies, how does something like just a few $1 billion slip through somebody's hands like Madoff and now nobody knows anything about it? I mean, you were examined and re-examined by these regulatory agencies, but it seems like they only examine and re-examine the people they want to look at.
That's right. And the reason why they couldn't really do anything to me was that the easiest way to get somebody out of business in the brokerage business is to accuse them and say that they were churning accounts, and it's something I never did because I would go out and raise fresh money all the time and bring people into the gold and silver shares. And so they really had nothing to go on except technical things like, well, you didn't file this report on January the 23rd like you were supposed to. It came in January the 24th or something like that. You know, just the harassment.
Mm-hmm.
My legal bills when I owned my own firm were $250,000 a year when I started.
Oh, my word.
And I only had maybe 10 employees. And then as I got bigger, the bill went up to $1 million a year. It's just like the IRS. I get audited 14, 15 years in a row.
Wow.
And they never found anything that I had to pay for. And yet my attorney and my accounting bills usually were over $100,000 and sometimes as much as $200,000 to defend myself. I had to hire the best attorneys in the country. I mean, the retainer was $50,000 down.
Oh, my goodness. You know, people can't even imagine
I've been through hell with the government, and it's payback time for me by just telling the truth to the public.
I can imagine, and I appreciate that, because it ought to be that way with more people. Unfortunately, it's not. Let's talk about what's happened with this latest round of bank failures. 3 of them failed. Now, are we looking at the FDIC becoming more depleted? What's the status of the FDIC now, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, who supposedly has enough money to, or they want you to think they have enough money to guarantee each account for $250,000?
Well, you get the right guy for the right question.
Okay.
It's right in the tip of my lips. Officially, the FDIC says that there's 258 banks in serious trouble, which would probably go under during the course of, say, the next year and a half. The real figure is 2,055, and I got that from someone who goes to the Federal Reserve meetings.
All right, 2,055 banks are in a world of hurt. Do we know?
Eminent something or other, but it's bad. It's not good.
Do we know how many banks there are in the United States left?
About 8,000, maybe 8,200.
So you're saying that 1/4, I mean, that's huge right there, what you just said. 1/4 of all banks are in trouble, serious trouble.
Well, let's factor in the money. First of all, and these are exact figures, the FDIC today has $93 billion, of which, now, I got to backtrack here, all the money that goes from the funders of the FDIC, which are banks, goes to the general fund, and the government uses it, and when the FDIC says, well, I need $42 billion this week, they're supposed to give it to them if it exists there. Now, we don't know because the government won't tell us. It's another one of those big secrets. If the FDIC has overreached the amount of money that they're supposed to get. I've been told that they have, but I can't find out what the figure is. And they have essentially a $500 billion line of credit. You might call it that for lack of a better word. Lack of credit that certainly fits. Now, they got $93 billion, and $45 billion of that was just given to them by the banks as dues based on their deposit base for the next 3 years.